Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Our guest today is Lana Gruell. After losing a loved one to suicide, Lana became a fierce advocate for preventing suicide. She's passionate about connecting young people suffering with their emotional well-being to counselors who may be able to help them. She started the Cashley Foundation, named after her daughter, to reduce the financial barriers to mental health care. Lana, welcome to the show today.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you so much. I am really happy to be here. I appreciate you inviting me, and I look forward to having this conversation with you today.
Well, look, I'm looking forward to it as well, Lana, to shed more light on a topic that we don't talk about often enough. But first, a
Right.
reminder to our listeners and our viewers, follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. I also want to add this word of caution to adults and anyone reviewing, listening to this podcast. I want you to brace yourself. This conversation contains a real life story about death by suicide. It's appropriate for children to learn about this, but I urge you, if a child is listening to this with you, to have a conversation about it with them. Lana, you are someone who have had a lived experience with death by suicide, and you're now working to help, let people know that there's an issue out there. And I just want to know, do you have any observations about children struggling with their emotional well-being? Is this something that, rarely happens, or would you say that this isn't a subject for some children, a struggle for some children?
I have learned so much about preventing youth suicide and youth mental health and my own mental health these past 14 months. And something that I have become aware of is that this is a very widespread issue, not just in our country, all over the world. So it is way more of an issue than people think. And I believe that in general, people tend to not want to talk about uncomfortable topics. So they don't talk about mental health in general or thoughts of suicide in general, let alone youth.
Yes, and yours, your daughter, this is 14 months ago. This is still pretty fresh for you. Once again, I thank you for your willingness to open up to, in service to others, to let them know about this issue.
If I understood you correctly, you said you asked if I've noticed that it's a worldwide issue. Is that basically what you asked?
That is correct. Worldwide issue, and an issue
Absolutely.
that faces virtually everyone. There's no group that's exempted from this, is what I'm trying to get at.
That is absolutely correct. I'm very vocal on social media, and I receive a lot of direct messages from various people all over the world about the issue, either saying that they can, they identify with my part of the story, or they identify with Cashleigh's part of the story. And it's sadly a very widespread problem. Yeah, but
I think
people
it's
just
very.
go ahead.
No, please. Finish your thought.
Oh, I'm just was going to say that again. People are not comfortable discussing, not with their family, not with their friends. But people are afraid of something that's different. So, the thought of seeking treatment, makes them feel like they're singled out. And depression, anxiety, PTSD, these things, they're liars, right? Yeah. And they make us feel like we are alone. They make us feel like we're the only one experiencing this, and that something's wrong with us that isn't wrong with other people, and that if we seek out help, that will be, and a lot of times, people are belittled for it. You can see it on social media. People make unkind remarks all the time. Sure.
Right, right. It
That's a huge
informs them.
barrier.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned, and I know it's true, you mentioned social media that you openly share on social media. I think that's very courageous of you. What prompted you to open your life to people globally like that? What prompted you to do that?
Yeah. It was an accident.
Mm,
I would not willingly open myself up like that. So I immediately knew I was not okay within hours of losing Cashleigh. I felt my sanity slipping. And I knew I needed to get into a therapist right away. So I got myself an appointment ASAP, literally cried and begged them to make an appointment to get me in. And one of my first appointments with her, she said, you should journal. It will help you with your grief journey. I said, that's a great idea. I'm not a talented person. I can't draw like Cashleigh could draw. I can't sing, but I can write. So I thought, well, I'll write. I actually went and purchased a journal, and on New Year's Day, I laid in Cashleigh's bedroom and had every intention of starting to write this beautiful journal that I bought. And I realized that I hadn't actually taken a pen and written on paper in years. And then I got to looking through all of my videos and pictures of her and my phone and her phone and everywhere, all of our devices, and decided that I would do a video picture journal. So I opened up TikTok, which was one of the things that I did on a regular basis to kind of occupy my mind, right? Just mindless scrolling. And I found a lot of grief support there. I made a video of, sorry.
you're fine.
I made a video of the doorbell video from when the paramedics arrived here at the house. And I thought that I made it private. Cashleigh had showed me, I had my TikTok account branded for my mortgage business, and I had every intention of making videos and posting, stuff for the mortgage business. But I made this video, and I thought that I made the settings private. I did not. A while ago, or a while after that, one of my very good friends texted me and said, "Whoa, are you okay? That's hard to watch." And
Yeah.
I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, your doorbell video. She said, it popped up on my TikTok. And I said, oh, I meant to make that like a private, this is supposed to be my private journal.
Right.
And I said, I got to go delete it. And I signed on, and I saw that I think it already had like 10,000 views, and people were commenting and, saying things like, thank you for posting this. I never thought about, my mom finding me, who would find me, their reaction, the pain that I would be causing them.
Yeah.
And so I left it up, and that's how it started.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
guess some things are supposed to be right.
Right.
You've mentioned,
Yeah.
you've mentioned Cashleigh a couple of times. Let's talk about her right now. Tell us about your baby, Cashleigh. Yeah.
It was pure sunshine, and anyone in our family and any of her friends would say that. She was the youngest of my 4 children, and she was 20, and Cashleigh was the kind of person where she just did the right thing because that's what you're supposed to do in her mind. I never had to talk to a teacher because Cashleigh caused any type of trouble. If anything, she helped. She was a helper. She just was a very kind, genuine, authentic human being. And she disliked injustice. She disliked things that were phony. And she was an artist. She was a self-taught artist. Actually have boxes in my garage of everything that she wrote on from the time she could start to scribble. And I have I have 4 children. I did not do that with my other children. I have no explanation for why I have boxes of things that Cashleigh drew and wrote, and I'm glad I did. And pictures and all kinds of things that we all did. She was our favorite person. You know, as a parent, you're not supposed to have a favorite, but nobody ever minded that I was openly, you know, saying Cashleigh was a favorite, because how could she not be? You know, she was just so easy to get along with and so much fun to be around.
Did she express, you know, some of her career, what she wanted after high school? Did she ever talk about things like that?
Express some of her what?
Of her aspirations, like
Yes.
what did she want to do beyond high school?
Yeah. And it's funny, it changed. Cashleigh was a self-taught artist, and then she taught herself how to do tattoos. You can see from the picture, all of those that you can see, she did herself on her own body. She did a hummingbird on her own sternum in the mirror. I mean, you know, and I know tattoos aren't everybody's thing, and I totally respect that. They were not my thing either. But she gave me what we call my cat-too. It's just an outline of a cat face on my finger, and 2 others that I got. But she was talented with that, and at one point that's what she wanted to do. And somewhere along the line, she sold her tattoo machine and said, I don't want to do that. And she actually had she received in Nevada, if you achieve certain things in high school, you're awarded what's called a Millennium Scholarship. So she received a $10,000 reward to attend any college in Nevada. And she had taken her entrance exams, and she wanted to start at the, let's see, it's a community college that following spring semester. And I did not know it at the time. I thought she was just going to take her, general classes. But after she passed, going through things, I found out that she wanted to study sign language, and she wanted to work with children in schools.
That's great. It sounds like she was a beacon of light.
She really was.
Yeah.
She absolutely was.
Yeah. So there must have been a backstory. Was there any event in her life that you learned about that might have caused her to struggle some?
Yes. Cashleigh, I found out in 2020, Cashleigh was sexually abused by a male member of my immediate family when she was 8, and this individual was 23. It's somebody that I allowed to stay in our home for a very short period of time.
Yeah. Did she ever, when she was younger, did she ever spoke up about that abuse that she had experienced as a child?
She did not until 2020.
Yeah. And when you learned of that, I mean, did she also show signs of depression or lowered feelings?
Yes. Cashleigh, it's very interesting when somebody has a traumatic event, they experience a traumatic event. There's different ways that different types of people deal with that. You'll see, excuse me, in some people, you'll see they'll start acting out, right? And so you'll see troubled youth where, they get into drugs, or, they're skipping school, or, fighting at school, things like that. Another way that youth will deal with something like this is they'll block it out. And that's exactly what Cashleigh did. Cashleigh never liked attention, although she was always guaranteed to be the funniest person in the room. She was funny, like, did you just see that? Right. She wasn't openly loud. She was not like that at all. But she had a very quick wit. but she did not like to draw attention to herself. So Cashleigh internalized it. In junior high, her best friend died of appendicitis. And I know that that's not something, you know, that these days that somebody would die of, but it was an unfortunate circumstance. And they didn't get her appendix out in time, and she became septic and she passed away. And I really believe that that was like the first crack in Cashleigh's armor. And she started having trouble sleeping. And she started having trouble with her memory. And she was a very good student, but she like would forget people. Like in grade school, she had a good friend, and she went to this kid's house and played with him, and went to the park and went to his birthday party, and they were friends. She really liked him. And you know, I mean, he was over at our house. They had fun. And then in junior high, he came up to her and was like, Cashleigh, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in years. And she came home in tears. She said, I do not remember him. Mom, is he playing with me? And I said, Cashleigh, he was your friend. But, you know, and that wasn't the only instance. There were several things that she just did not remember, you know, conversations.
You know, did she, was she able to get support from a therapist while she was struggling?
Yeah. Yes and no. Unfortunately, so the first time that she asked about therapy was probably about 2019. And, you know, things had just reached peak level for her. And, you know, lack of sleep is a horrible thing. And she asked me, she knew we have medical insurance. Cashleigh had asthma, so she was a frequent flyer at the doctor's office. She'd asked me if our insurance pays for therapy. And I said, yeah, of course it does. And, you know, as a mom, my mom guilt is like off the charts, right? And I'm sure at some point I'll make peace with that. But, you know, we moms, we take on the blame for everything. And I really blame myself. I wish that what I would have done was just found a therapist and let her go. But I started digging and asking questions, and she backed off. And the next thing I know, she was like, no, I'm fine. But then during the pandemic, she graduated from high school in 2020. That was a huge letdown for her. And she really reached peak mental health crisis point. And that's when I started actively trying to find her a therapist. And unfortunately, in the pandemic, that was the worst time to try to find a therapist. Yeah. So she didn't get into someone until early 2021. And unfortunately, she got caught in the hamster wheel, I guess, is what I kind of look at it as. And instead of being treated for being a victim of sexual abuse and receiving therapy and treatment for that, she was referred to a psychiatrist, and a psychiatrist isn't doing their job unless they diagnose you with something that they can give you medications for. And she was over 18, and I didn't want to seem unsupportive. I tried to ask her to hold out and to continue with therapy before she jumped to medication, but she trusted the psychiatrist and started taking the medications, and everything went downhill from there.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that she, was a victim of sexual abuse at a very large, young age. And this is just make sure people understand, this is a major trauma in somebody's life.
Absolutely.
So, what was that like for her? I mean, her struggles, she must have had some struggles after that event as she matured. And how do you feel that she coped with that major trauma?
Well, again, Cashleigh, she never wanted to be a burden. And I believe that's why, when she was in school, she always tried to be a helper and didn't cause any trouble at school. She did the same thing at work. She, held a couple different jobs. So, she just tried to maintain.
Yeah.
That's really what she did.
Right. She was like a lot of people, they have a trauma, but they don't want anyone to know.
That's
They want to
exactly
keep
right.
this secret. But this is a message to people who are listening or viewing, this conversation. If you've been a victim of a trauma, perhaps it's not a good idea to keep it a secret.
It is not,
So
because
what
it's
about,
going to come out.
yeah, it's
It
going to
will
come
come
out.
out. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about post-traumatic, what is it called? Post-traumatic
Stress disorder.
syndrome? Yeah, stress disorder. Would you say that that was a part of her experience as well, that she suffered
Yes.
some PTSD or
She
not?
did. No, she most definitely did. She was diagnosed with PTSD. And I wish I have learned about so many resources now for PTSD, for different types of treatment. I've learned about resources for sexual abuse survivors that I wish we would have known about. Unfortunately, I don't know how it is in other locations, but when someone attempts to take their life where we're located, and they're placed on like a 3-day, inpatient hold, when they're released, they're just kind of let go. And they have to sign a form that says this, that, and the other, but it doesn't really offer resources. When they're there, they're not offered resources. They're medicated.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, then when Cashleigh died, that was not the first attempt
It was
to
not.
end her life. Okay.
That was her third attempt.
And along with this is the death of a child by suicide. Lana, the loss of a child for a family is heartbreaking enough. But there seems to be something else going on here, is that you lost a child by suicide. And as a parent, I want you to ask you, what are some of the emotions that a has who lost a child by suicide?
Yeah. First of all, suicide. I've lost lots of loved ones, but losing someone to suicide adds layers upon layers to our grief. Normal grief has guilt in there, right? But with suicide, there's and normal grief has anger too. And I've met a lot of parents who have lost children to suicide. And I know, just between myself and my other 3 children, Cashleigh's older 3 siblings, that all of our experiences and thoughts are different. And I see a lot and hear a lot of people that really honestly believe that a person who takes their life knew what they were doing when they did it, and that they made a conscious choice. And I have, and I remember in those very first days, we desperately tried to get into Cashleigh's phone and her laptop. I went through everything that I could go through in her room, and poured through journals and notepads and pockets and purses, right? I struggled with that too, because I also, felt like, and I was violating her privacy. But there is, with suicide, this yearning for answers, and for that aha, that was it, right? But there's a few things that go along with a suicide, a death by suicide. And one of the main things that I have learned is that there's an analogy, the the glass of water analogy that we talk about, half full, half empty. But as it relates to suicide, there's a thing that talks about the last drop. And, with Cashleigh, suffering the sexual abuse filled her glass of water up, right? That was a lot for a child to deal with. And then, her friend died, and then, the pandemic, and then graduating from high school. And then you have to add in just the other things that happen in a human being's life, right? That just become unbearable. And then you have to add in the constant carousel of medications that she was, put on. It ends up not being, there's not one event. Like, I didn't look through her phone and find one text message that said, that was it. That's what tipped her over, right? I even opened up to where, I believe that one of the factors in the very end was she was allergic to a certain type of medication, and she was having an allergic reaction the night before she ended her life. And I took her to the ER. We told the ER staff that she was allergic to it. It gave her hallucinations, that she had PTSD. She could not have the medication. And they did not listen to us. And I found out afterwards that she was given that medication. They shot it in her IV. They completely disregarded us. So, I feel like in that moment, that evening, that, she probably thought that was her pivotal moment, that, she finally was losing her mind. As a sexual abuse survivor, again, she was not given the treatment, the EMDR, the brain spotting, the, treatments that would have helped PTSD. She was told that she was basically mentally ill, for lack of a better term, and put on medication, as if a pill was going to make her forget that at 8 years old, she was victimized, Yeah. So she really believed that something was wrong with her, and she was just trying to cope with that. And I believe that night it just became too much for her.
Right. I can see that as well. So now, I'm sure as a parent, you've heard, and you probably have said it to yourself, it's not my fault. And your friends probably
no,
have
I
told
say the
you,
opposite. I say
yeah.
it's my fault. Every night I lay in bed and think of things that I could have, should have done.
What are some things that you think you should have done?
Yeah.
Or could have done?
Well, one, this goes back to, I wrote an essay this last week and posted it on one of my social medias about all the messages that I get from parents asking for, how do I keep my child from being a victim of suicide? And the truth is the steps as parents that we need to take to prevent our children from becoming victims of suicide start long before we have to get a safe and start putting medications in the safe, or not, hiding knives or ropes, right? Or tracking our children's location, because at that point they're in a mental health crisis, right? That's not suicide prevention. That's just running scared. To me, suicide prevention comes when the suicide prevention is, in my instance, not just blindly thinking that I could leave my child alone with someone because they were a family member. I should have never done that. And I've had lots of people say, you could have never known. I could not have known because I didn't know and I didn't suspect. But as a parent, Cashley was 8. She was my responsibility. I should have never left her alone like that. Like I don't know. I should have looked into this person's character more, instead of just assuming that because he was a member of our family, that's okay. So that's number one.
I hear you. Okay, I hear you on that one, and I'm not going to challenge you on that at all.
Yeah,
but
you're gonna lose the argument because to me, I failed her.
Yeah, but in your heart of hearts, though, how could you have known that this person was was an abuser, of children, a pedophile.
Right.
But how can a parent know something like that, in
Well,
advance?
because it's our responsibility to ask questions. It's our responsibility, let me put it like this. When you go to use, I don't know, a mechanic, right?
Uh-huh.
And you go and you Google mechanics in your area. Okay, we look at Google reviews and we go, oh, they only have 1 star. I'm not using that. So
Right.
so if we're going to go to the trouble of looking up information about a mechanic and not taking our car to a mechanic because they had obvious bad service, the least we could do for the well-being of our children is to second guess, to
Okay.
ask questions.
Okay. Okay. I understand. Is there anything else you think you could have done differently?
Yes, absolutely. Um, and of course, hindsight is 2020 vision, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So, and I have nothing but time to beat myself up now, right? So I'm just being very brutally honest here. Okay. The other thing is I believe that when Cashleigh came to me in 2019 asking about therapy, I should have just said yes and not pressed her. I do mortgages for a living. I am not a therapist. I don't know the questions to ask, nor if she started telling me anything, would I have known how to help her unpack it? So I should have went straight to the internet or my phone, called my insurance company or something and get her set up with a therapist and got her in, because my questioning her backed her off. And I feel like I cost her an entire year of healing.
Okay. All right. So I want to go back now to parents generally and talk about the kinds of things that children may be experiencing. And you just told us, you said, sometimes you need to listen to your children. So from your experience as an advocate, we'll get into the Cashley Foundation before we leave today.
Sure.
Some children experience bullying, so if a kid were to come home from school and tell a parent that I'm being bullied at school, what would you suggest that that parent do in that moment with that child?
Well, the first thing I think that, we as parents need to do is make sure that the child understands that it isn't them, that whatever the bully is, bullying them about and saying about this, your child, that it's not true. And one of my children was bullied in school, and what I did is I asked my child about the bully. What's this? Do they have good grades? Do they have friends? Do they are they nice outside of the bully, with you? And all those answers are no, they're not doing so. Okay, so we're talking about someone who is troubled. So that's no surprise that they're, acting out against you.
Acting,
yeah. And then the second part. So I always tried to teach my children compassion for the bully. And, I know a lot of people don't agree with me on that, and that's fine. But that, in teaching your child that, I believe that solidifies the fact that it's not your child. There's not something wrong with your child, and that's why the bully's doing it. There's something going on with the bully, probably at home, that's making them come to school and act out like that. And you're just the victim of the day. So, and then the next thing is, I, by any means necessary, if it continues beyond one instance, by any means necessary, I removed my child from that class, that school, that situation.
Because what I like from what, I'm sorry, go ahead with that.
Okay,
because, well, what I like about what you just said is that you listened, your child reported an incident of bullying.
Right.
You listened and you talked with the child about it.
Right.
as opposed to dismissing it. Is that a lesson for parents, you think? That it's important to
Absolutely.
listen?
But you know,
Yeah.
everybody's so busy right now. It's so easy. And everybody has their AirPods in or headphones on, or, you know, everybody's doing something else. We're all multitasking. So it's, you know, it's hard to stop and listen. Especially, I was a single mom with 4 children. I failed a lot of times in stopping and listening, right? And you know, tying this in with youth suicide prevention, I also want to bring up one of the points that, you know, a lot of people will comment on things that I posted on social media and say, you know, and this is very unkind. So I'm going to prepare you, but this is the world that we live in, and this is just the things that people say. A lot of people will comment and say it's the mom's fault because, you know, she wasn't close enough with her daughter, or it's the mom's fault because, you know, she should have listened to her child. Okay, fair enough. And in some instances, that might be the case. But one of the other things that I try to talk about with youth suicide is we can't just assume that our child is going to come to us and tell us. Because Cashleigh and I were very close. She even joked and said that I was her own personal diary when she was younger. And, you know, in my mind, I was like, there's nothing my child will tell me. Well, guess what? Trauma is traumatic. They don't want to talk about it. Right. They don't want, just like with an adult. You know, how many times has a woman been sexually assaulted and was scared to report it, didn't want to report it? You know, imagine being a child with sexual abuse, with bullying. You know, maybe your child doesn't want to come home and tell you about it because they're scared.
Right. That's right. I mean, you're right. So right about that.
You can't just assume that your child's going to tell you.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah.
So how can, I mean, you know, we talk about depression a lot. That is, if you were to turn on any social media channel, you see adults talking to other adults about depression as if though children are somehow exempted. How can parents become, how can parents become more aware of what might be going on with their children and, you know, about their medical, emotional well-being?
Right. How can they become more aware? I mean, you know, there are children. We know, you know, if you're in a relationship, you have a significant other, and you notice that, you know, all of a sudden their pattern's different, and you know, think, I wonder if they're messing around on me. Well, if you can do that with your partner, you can do that with your children. So you're going to notice your children's patterns are different or off, or their language is different. Their body language is different, right?
Right. I mean, I think
sleeping patterns are different. Yeah.
Indeed. I mean, you know, if a person is experiencing anxiety, depression, sometimes they withdraw, they sleep more than they, you know, so you're right, just to be aware and of course, take action if that's possible, right?
Right. Right.
But you also said something, Lana, that's very important, is that we don't have to try to be therapists because we're not.
We are not.
We can put our children
and that invalidates. That's right. You know, and again, as adults, you know, we're constantly saying, you know, you're not alone, you know, please reach out for help. But we know how difficult it is as adults to reach out for help. Imagine how difficult it is for a child, right? They're a child. They have no idea what's going on. They're not self-aware really yet, right? They're not enlightened like that. So when, like, if your child actually comes to you and says, can I see a therapist? Shut up and get them into a therapist. Like, don't ask questions. You know, I don't know what I would have done had Cashley, you know, just divulged everything to me when I asked her. I mean, I couldn't have helped her. That I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, I hear you. And so now you're raising awareness about youth and the prevention of youth suicide. So what are you doing in that area? What are some things that you're doing, or have, some things that you're doing about that?
Yeah. Well, mainly, you know, accidentally, I started a social media youth suicide prevention campaign. So started on one platform, moved to another, and so we lost Cashleigh December 2nd, 2022. And I posted that first video on TikTok January 1st, 2023. So I didn't, I jumped head first accidentally, right? And, there's days where I would like to just shut all of that off because it is, it's difficult, right? And a lot of people say, oh, you're so strong for talking about this. Well, I really didn't give myself a choice. So it is what it is. But I know that a lot of people don't talk about it if they lose a brother or a child or a husband. And the reason is because of the stigma associated with suicide, right? We've got a stigma associated with mental health. Then we have a stigma associated with, losing someone to suicide. So as a mom who lost a child to suicide, it would be better for my reputation, right? I mean, I'm burying all of my mistakes out there and admitting I lost my daughter to suicide because, again, the think tank around suicide is she did it on purpose. She, I must have been such an awful mother or,
Yeah, the wonderful thing about this is that you are talking about it. So the listeners like me, and I've heard you before, I never think that you were responsible. It's really interesting, but it's good that you're talking about it because it raises my antenna about, death by suicide generally for me, but also for the youth as well. That's really interesting.
Right.
So what else are you doing to raise awareness of teenage, suicide?
Right. So, I just continue to engage on social media. I've amassed quite a following. My demographic is a mix. And so I just continue to post and, tell Cashleigh's story, talk about my grief, our family's grief, because I want people to see that people comment on my posts all the time and say, oh, I'm so sorry. She was so beautiful. Yes, she was. Absolutely. She was pure sunshine in and out. But I want people to understand that, she was, well, that way. Cashleigh was a daughter. She was a friend. She was someone's girlfriend. She was an aunt. So I want, I post the good videos, the bad videos, the silly pictures, all of that stuff, because our family is nothing special. There's nothing special about our family. We're not rich, we're not poor, so that's it. Suicide does not care. It can happen to anyone. And then the other thing is we formed the nonprofit with the mission, passion to form an online platform for youth to, we believe that prevention is better than a cure. So there's 988 and, it's an amazing resource for someone who is in a crisis. But what we're trying to do is reach youth before they reach crisis mode. We are trying to get them help in their need before it manifests into a suicidal crisis.
What's the name of your foundation?
The foundation itself is called the Cashley Foundation, of course. I couldn't think of any better name. I love saying her name. I love her name. And there was no question in my mind. The platform, though, that's just the foundation. The foundation will fund the actual platform that we're going to set up. I have an idea of what the website would be named, but we have not started building that yet. It is a huge undertaking because it's going to be a nationwide resource for youth across the country. So we're going to open it in Nevada first, and then, multiply that in every state, right? Mirror that in every state, and and hopefully have every state across the country. And what our plan is to have a website and eventually a app that's youth can download on their phone, that they can go and fill out an intake form and make sure that they're not having a crisis. Again, we want to help them before they reach crisis mode. So if they are in a mental health crisis, there's plenty of resources that we can put them in touch with for that. But they're going to fill out an intake form, and we're going to match them with a therapist. Have you ever heard of betterhelp.com?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so it gained huge popularity during the pandemic because it's all online. They don't take insurance, it's all self-pay. So you go on the platform, you create a profile, and you are matched with a therapist. And then you go back onto the website and you do your telehealth talk therapy, right? Mm-hmm. So it's video, right, on the website. That's exactly what we're going to do for youth. And but it's youth won't see. Here's the barriers to youth getting help, right? First of all, they got to go through their parents. Second of all, they have to pay. They would need a ride to the therapist. They'd need insurance, right? If they can go online and get the therapy that they need online for free, then they're going to be okay. And there's different ages of what's the word I'm looking for? Consent for mental health treatment in every state across the country. So, we're going to need to make sure that we abide by that. And our main source of the therapists will be clinical behavioral health interns that need to fulfill their hours, right, in order to get their therapist license. In Nevada, it's 500 hours. I asked my therapist, how'd you fulfill those hours? And she said that one of her professors just kind of gave her a sheet that said, here, contact these agencies. So we're going to get on that list in every state across the country, in every educational institution that we can, and make use of those interns. Which is a wonderful thing, because most of the interns will be younger individuals, right? I mean, there's a lot of, I'm 57, so, I know that there's a lot of 30, 40, 50, year olds going back to school, and that's a wonderful thing too. But I think for the most part, the interns that are going to be administering the telehealth talk therapy are going to be younger people that identify with the youth. They're going to be more comfortable. And of course, one of the barriers to people getting therapy these days is the shortage of therapists. So if we make it easier for the interns to access a means to get their hours, it's going to push through more therapists through the system as well. I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just amazed that out of the tragedy, something really beautiful has come out of this. Not only the Cashley Foundation, but that's certainly important, but you're raising awareness about this as well. Yeah. Do you see that? Do you see?
I'm humbled by it. And I will tell you, and anyone who asks me, I tell them, this is not me. I am not this smart. Nor am I this strong. But Cashleigh was an absolutely amazing human being. And in her absence, in her death, she gave me this idea. Again, I'm not this smart. I did not think about this. This was, and she's done it with several things, put things in front of us and our family. And she put this idea in my head, and I was like, why can't that work? That there's no reason that it can't work.
I think that's fabulous. So I came across something dealing with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police, something about the petition. Can you talk about that, or is that something that's?
Yeah. I have a list of things that I don't really talk about on social media, because in my mind, it detracts from preventing youth suicide. But there are certain things that have happened since we lost Cashleigh that are absolutely inexcusable and unbelievable. And sorry, this issue with the police is at the top of the list. 1 second. So, you know, of course, when Cashley told me what happened, I told her that, you know, understanding my strengths and weaknesses as a human being and as a mother, that she can tell me what happened if she wants to, but that I was not going to press her for morbid details, that was up to her and up to her discretion. And I also asked her what she wanted to do, what she was comfortable doing about it. And because this was a family member, because Cashley was a very smart, very enlightened person, she knew that it would start a family feud. And she told me that she did not want to go to the police. She told me that she did not, she begged me, asked me, and I respected it, not to tell anybody in the family. Her siblings knew, and a couple of her close friends knew. But I, of course, as you can imagine, wanted to go to the police. I wanted to drive to my hometown. I wanted to, you know, confront the individual. We did not do that. We knew that, you know, because she was a child when it happened, that the statute of limitations here in Nevada was 20 years. So she said, please let me focus on my healing. We have time. And let me, you know, get healed and get strong. So that's what we decided to do. After she passed, and I did not have to hold this inside any longer, I called the individual and told them that I know. They immediately began a, what's that called that a narcissist does? Something campaign against me.
Okay.
You know, totally denies it. And as a result, I don't speak to any of my family from my hometown that still lives there. And that's fine. That includes my own mother, unfortunately. So, but I did get all of her medical records, all of her therapy, psychiatric records, everything. And just blindly thought that the police cared, that an 8-year-old mixed race child was sexually abused by a 23-year-old white male. You know, I had no idea that they would give me such a problem. And I took everything and went to the police department in our substation near our home, and was told there's no victim statement, and they could not even take a report. And when I asked why can't her therapy records, where she stated who did it, how old she was, what year it happened, why can't those therapy records be used as the victim's statement? Certainly when someone is murdered, you know, that's obviously much worse than this case, but the victim is deceased. How do you solve a murder if the victim is deceased? So in my daughter's case, she told every therapist who the person was. I have her final letter to us. She named him again, you know, in her final letter. I don't understand then. And so I had to file start a petition on change.org to demand that the police would even take the police report after they had denied me twice. And we got almost 5,000 signatures. And a senior investigator from the sexual victims unit called me, apologized, came to our home, took the report, and several weeks later called me and said that he spoke with the DA's office, and they are not going to do any investigation. They will not be pursuing into any type of charges, anything. So they still never even questioned the individual. They never called any of her therapists, nothing. Just And I said, what is the reason? And they said that the reason is because there's no victim statement. I don't understand it. I'm looking into other avenues. I intend to contact the FBI. I actually, I filed a police report. I have the police report number. I feel like I should be able to post it on social media, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
well, look,
yeah.
I'm sorry. So we're near the end. Is there anything else that you want to share with us today?
Well, I just really, really want people to understand that I actually have two things. I guess we have 5 minutes, right? So I'll just say there's two things. One, if you are struggling and you are not in a crisis, that there are so many resources available. If you are not insured, join a support group. I have joined a couple of support groups for grieving parents, one specifically for parents who have lost a child to suicide. And being in communication with people who are experiencing exactly what I'm experiencing has helped me tremendously. And a support group is an amazing way to seek your own healing. And if you do have have money to pay or insurance or something like that, there's all types of resources. Psychologytoday.com is the best place to get in touch with a therapist. Try a therapist. Again, a therapist and a psychiatrist are two different things. A therapist will talk with you and help you work through it. A psychiatrist is going to give you medications. If you're going to go the medications route, I urge people to do the genetic testing. The genetic testing will help determine which psychiatric medications your particular body chemistry will work with. And insurance might not pay for it, but it's better than going on the medication carousel, because that can be deadly. So there's that. If you are in crisis mode, please reach out to 988. And I think I've seen a lot of people online say that, bad things about 988, gets a bad rap, I think. There is a misconception that if you call or text 988, that they will call the police and the police will come to your home and take you away. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. The people that work on the 988 line will, first of all, they're trained. So, if you tried to talk to your mom or your sister or somebody and they brushed you off, maybe they have their own problems. Maybe they are not equipped to help you. So call somebody who is. And the people with 988 are educated and trained to know how to help you. And they're not just going to call the police. I have my daughter's phone. I know that, in her case, she texted 988 before, and not that night, but she had texted with them before, and they literally just had a conversation with her, just talked about herself. And, the conversation ended with, her saying, I feel better now. Thank you for talking to me. I suffer from anxiety. So there's times when I have panic attacks, and, just being able to talk myself or, talk with someone about it, it brings you down, and the people on the 988 line, they are trained to help you do that.
Well, that's great. Well, I tell you what, I know you said that you're not brave, but I commend you for your bravery.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I commend you for your heart, your compassion, and what you're doing to benefit all. So thank you so much for sitting with me today,
yes.
Lana Gruell.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad our paths crossed.
Okay. Well, you've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Our guest today has been Lana Gruell, Until next time, good day